Welcome to the 100th Monkey Radio with Tom and Ramon. We are recording this on January 29th of 2015. And, Ramon, I'll tell you what, after the show that we did here earlier this week, that we recorded earlier this week, she brought up some pretty interesting points that I've thought about here in the last few days about what's actually the energy feels like just since the beginning of the year. And, I think she was right on spot because there's a tremendous, I really thought about where my head's been since the beginning of the year and what I've personally been doing. And I've definitely been doing a lot of really deep soul searching and reflection. And, last year, if you remember, Ramon, I had this sense of a building of the energy. It was like it felt like things were just ramping up, and it was like piling on. The snowball was rolling and gathering more snow, and it was getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And this year it feels completely different. It's like I'm taking everything that happened last year and trying to really incorporate it into Tom. I don't know if that makes any sense to you or not. But there's been definitely a lot of reflection and trying to make sense of all the high strangeness, as our guests like to say, for tonight, which you guys will hear probably quite often this evening. It's definitely starting off with a completely different pace than what I've experienced here in the last 10 years, anyways. So
it's over here in Japan, where I'm at, it's starting to snow, which is pretty rare in the Kanto region where Tokyo and Yokohama is, and Chiba, where I live. But let's get into some news. And one of the news thing I want to cover is 15 plants and herbs that helps lungs, heal respiratory infections, repair pulmonary damage. And number one on that list is licorice root. Most of these, I think, most people will be familiar with, especially our audience. The next one is colt's foot. Number 3 is cannabis. Unfortunately, we don't have time, so I can read what some of the things they're good for. Not surprising there with the cannabis, but I'm sure they don't mean smoking it.
Cannabis for respiratory stuff, really?
Yeah.
So, obviously that must not be for smoking it.
No, I don't think so. The other one is osha root, thyme, oregano. That one I knew about. It's also really good for the stomach. This one I've never heard of, lobelia. The other one is elecampane. If you know these, Tom, correct my.
It's Greek to me right now. That one is.
Okay. Number 9 is eucalyptus. That one is also not a surprise. Mullein, lungwort, surprising with a name like that. Chaparral, sage, that one's also not a surprise. And the last one is peppermint, also not a surprise. So there you are.
Yeah, that's definitely some good information for this time of the year. Yeah. I'll tell you, here in Western Washington, there just seems to be a rash of. It seems to be tapering off now, finally, but there was a rash of illness that's lung related illnesses going about. All sorts of people, and I actually experienced it myself. I got to the verge of walking pneumonia for me, and I was sick for damn near a month. And I finally bit the bullet and went in and got some antibiotics. And I tried all sorts of home remedies, and Elizabeth fixed me up some really amazing stuff, which I think in conjunction with the antibiotics that I took definitely helped clear things out. but I could not shake it for anything. And so I suppose, what Western medicine, the antibiotics, there is definitely a place and a time where they make sense to use, so.
Yeah, there definitely is. The problem is that we get shots for antibiotic for everything.
Right.
Once you go in and you say, "Oh, I think this might be infected or something," and right away you get antibiotics. So
right.
Just make sure that you load yourself up with, the good bacteria stuff that you can find in yogurts and those kind of things. So before we introduce our guest, Tom, I actually wanted you to start off with the story. Most of our guests would know this. Most of our listeners would know this, but I think it would be a familiar place. With what happened to you with the time you and Elizabeth with your leg.
Oh, yep, I knew that's what. For some reason, Ramon, I heard you say that before you said it.
Stop reading my mind.
Okay. So, before I get into the bio here, I'll relay this story. Elizabeth and I were sitting out in the living room, and we were, watching some movie or something, and I felt something on it was during the summer, and I was wearing a pair of shorts, and I felt something on my thigh, and I looked down, and there's this lump standing up off the top of my thigh, and it looked like a chili bean, like a regular bean, a hard bean. And I reached down and touched this thing, and it was hard as a rock. I mean, it was hard like a dried bean. And I was like, Elizabeth, look at this. What the hell is this? And we poked at it for a second, and I pulled my hand away, and at this point, I've been looking at this thing for about 15 seconds. And I pulled my hand away, and it just dissolved back into my leg. And it just completely disappeared. And I'll tell you what, I probed and dug deep into the tissue, and I could not find that thing again. That one was absolutely bizarre, and it has never come back either. Yes, definitely, that one was definitely high strangeness. And, if it was me by myself sitting there, and this had happened, I probably would never have said anything to anybody about it, but I had Elizabeth there, and she was just as freaked out about it as I was. So, I've felt into it energetically, and actually taken this into meditation, and there is, for lack of a better term, otherworldly involvement there of some form or fashion that I haven't exactly quite been able to zero in on, but it's definitely there. So
maybe it's a way to transmit our radio shows to other planets.
Well, we do we simulcast telepathically. Maybe we're out there in the universe too.
Anyway,
let's go ahead and get into our guests tonight. We have with us Chad and Alta Dillard with us tonight. They met and were married in the early 90s in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas. Marriage was one of destiny, and as Alta would say, arranged. They did not know what they did not know is that from that moment on, the couple would partake in a journey into the world of unknown and high strangeness. From aliens to ghosts to shapeshifters, from meeting people who have been seen and some unseen. This is a story for the open-minded. In 1995, Chad and Alta experienced their first UFO, a massive sight in Hammond, Louisiana. The experience opened their eyes and led them to the well-known French Quarter in New Orleans, where the high strangeness continued. As they tried to take day by day to understand their place and purpose of these unusual events, they met a young lady, a co-worker named Jacqueline. Little did Jacqueline know that this would be the most unusual bond of her life. In 1997, a night that would live with them to their last breath, Chad and Alta and Jacqueline were taken from a street corner in the French Quarter. Alta calls this the night of missing time, where the three have shared their own individual experiences. Everything from Chad's blue being encounter, Alta's blonde female interaction, and the implant found in her arm and 4-digit prints. Their story will take your breath away. The High Strangeness continued in 1999 when Chad and Alta moved to New Mexico, where Chad went face-to-face with a black-eyed adult and other anomalous happenings. The couple moved to Denver, Colorado for their jobs and found themselves in the middle of the infamous Columbine High School massacre, which occurred on April 20th of 1999. In 2001, the couple found their way to Alabama, where Chad works with his dad in the locomotive business. Their stay continues to bring high strangeness into their lives. The strange encounters continued, or should we say followed them, as they discovered a Sasquatch creature, ghosts, red orbs, lizard monkeys, and so much more. They encountered their second UFO while driving across Mississippi in 2012 and discovered that one of their family members had had a similar experience. And the story gets more and more strange. How does this all play together? Well, they can't be sure, but they do know that it is happening. And it has happened and is happening. So we're going to sit back and listen to Chad and Alta and find out exactly what the heck is going on. Welcome to the 100th Monkey Radio, the two of you.
Thank you so much. And I never thought of it as funny sounding until we're now on the 100th Monkey show. Speaking to you about a lizard monkey.
There we go.
Well, it's not the 100th monkey lizard.
That's right. That's right. So thank you so much for having us.
Oh, okay. So, man, so, you know, we kind of like to start out by getting a little bit of background from our guests and you know, what kind of a childhood they had and how they were raised and what it was that actually brought their minds and their awareness into the events that they're actually coming on our show to speak about. So, I suppose, Alta, let's start with you. And, you know, when I'm asking about your upbringing, you know, religion always plays into these things. So, I suppose let's start there. Were you raised in a religious household?
You know, in essence, I would have to say traditionally, yes, when I'm young, very young. I'm born in 1957. I'd like to also preface, it's hard for me to give you yes, no, and I love the question, so please, you know, feel free, nothing off limits as far as I'm concerned, and really appreciate the questions. But if I may say, in my case, I'm born in 57, told that I'm born on a reservation in Arizona of mixed native blood and Caucasian. What I know for fact is that my mom left that area when I'm about 6 months old, removed herself and myself from my father and all his people, and began somewhat of a life of mystery. Now, my mom has crossed over since, so I don't have her physically to communicate with about these kinds of specific questions any longer. And there's just an awful lot of mystery in my past. My first memories, literally of childhood, don't begin until I'm around 9 years old. That would make it around 1966. There's more to that story, but just, you know, again, so appreciating your question. Mom made sure that she had been raised in the Catholic traditions. She had a lot of issue with that, so she started experiencing, from my understanding, different types of religions, but traditional religions.
Right.
So ultimately gave me the opportunity, and now I realize what a gift, to have somewhat some real liberal attitude about me experiencing different types of religions, if you will. And ultimately I spent, you know, my most enjoyable time, if you will, in the Orthodox Eastern Orthodox Church,
Hmm.
but primarily because they had a liturgy that was sung. And back in the day, I used to sing. And so, again, that's as weird a story as all the rest in my life. So, you know, we had an amazing Hungarian priest with an all Middle Eastern congregation. And here's my mother and I, mixed American Indian, in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. So, I mean, I can't begin to tell you what a weird beginning for me.
Interesting combination there. Yeah.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
And then Chad will speak for himself about his religious background.
And I'll explain why I'm asking this question here after I hear from Chad here. Chad, was religion a part of your experience as you grew up?
Yeah, mostly on my mom's side. We, you know, my grandparents on my mother's side, you know, they were Sunday twice a day, you know, Wednesdays, you know, Baptist, Southern Baptist. So, you know, very strict in that sense. Now my father's parents were not so much as I was growing up, you know. We lived very country in Arkansas. You know, my parents, my dad and my grandfather and all were rice farmers. But as far as religion, it was all pretty much my mother's side, and it was the Baptist. And I did that until, you know, off and on until high school.
Right, right. So I asked this question about religion because as more and more time goes on and we learn more about the extraterrestrial connections that we have here on the planet, we're starting to it's really starting to become a very apparent and getting close to the point of undeniable that many of the events out of most of the major religions have a very, very close connection to extraterrestrial contact and communication, and it is definitely shaped the social consciousness of our planet. You know, and I've seen so many people in this woo-woo field, you know, the alternative genre, the consciousness in the ETs and all these different alternative fields that have come out of a very strict and very or at least a very devout religious tradition where they've put enough of themselves into it and been a true enough seeker to find that even within the doctrines that they were following, the clues are there that lead them out of it. So, anyways,
and you know, if I could add, Tom,
absolutely.
I find just as interesting, absolutely. You know, Chad and I both on this side nodding our heads yes in agreement with what we hear you saying. But I find it just as amazing that, you know, my mom opened up a world for me, made my supposed mixed Native American blood very global, and so made the world really, if you will, my tribe. And in traveling some places in the world, but certainly encountering by choice and directed by the unseen again, folks that walk all walk of life in this world. Chad and I have become extremely close to a young woman. Well, she's, you know, 50-ish, but looks adorable for her age and getting cuter as she gets older, who happens to be a Hindu from India that we've met, who has relocated here to the States, that we've met and years ago and become very close to. She calls us her brother and sister. So I often refer to us as when East meets West. Well, this little Brahmin, you know, the highest caste, the royal caste of their culture, she's a biochemist by profession. She is brilliant. And when we first meet, I show her this object in my upper arm, almost very quickly when I discover what she does for a living and her background. And she recoiled from me and it shocked me. And she made it very clear to me that it had nothing to do with her love for Chad and I and her respect for us, but she made it clear that there was nothing that she could do to help me. And it just blew my mind. And here she is from a class and culture of ancients who have it written about vimanas that, are flying craft that she is in complete denial about, and yet holds her customs to the highest. It's mind-blowing to me.
Wow. Yeah, that's quite that's quite interesting in itself. So, where were you guys at with the whole ET idea, and where was your mind at prior to your first real encounter there? I mean, were you an ancient alien watcher type person? Did you follow the ET news or any of that sort of thing prior to your first experiences there?
For me personally, not. Especially back in the 90s, this was before all the ancient alien taps, ghosts, all these shows. So, I was really not into any of that.
And in my case, I had no interest whatsoever in sci-fi, nothing. My mom, on the other hand, had a very powerful interest in Star Trek, from the beginning, from the roots of it all the way through, and often would tell folks, and I just found it crazy when she would make these statements that she had a desire to go in space, to fly in space. I just found that mind-blowing, again, my words, because these are just, as I've had all this time to reflect back, it's so amazing, as they say, from where we've been to where we've come in our thinking and so on. But certainly I had no interest whatsoever.
So before you two met and got together, had either of you had any extraterrestrial encounters that freaked you out or anything along those lines, or was it after the two of you met that these started happening?
Well, lucky you guys. Chad keeps pointing at me, and maybe because I'm 10 years older than Chad, or I'd like to think Beauty Before Beast or what have you. But anyhow, I'll lead off with this. Right. Essentially, as I told you, I've got a childhood of mystery. I've never seen an original birth certificate. All I've seen is an amended birth certificate. I've never seen baby pictures of myself at all. My photos don't start until I'm 2. And then there's a lot of them, too many. And I've always kind of, in time of reflecting on this, I've often wondered, was I born or was I hatched?
Right.
At this stage of the game, I'm just not sure about anything anymore. But my mom, again, she's my only reference to the past because I was removed from all families. So I'm only raised with a mother throughout my life, for the most part. So anyhow, she would tell folks that she trusted, and that was very few, because she had a very mysterious past. To the point of my understanding, when she left my father in the reservation area and all the people, she even changed her name legally. So it causes me a lot of difficulty doing any background hunting.
Right.
And I've tried deeply. But anyhow, she claims that when I'm about 6 months old, which is when I understand she left my father and all the people, this would have made it at the end of around 1957 to the beginning of 58. She claims that she's driving across the desert. I don't know what desert she's speaking about. I know I'm from Arizona, but that's all that I know. And she claims that it's daytime and that sometimes she would use the word metallic craft, or sometimes she'd actually say the word UFO, came down out of the sky, landed, it's making me shiver to repeat this. It's so interesting because I have said this many times when asked in the past, but it never senses, it just brings a strange reaction from me. But she claims that this craft came down out of the sky, stopped her on a highway, and she claims that she's the driver and I'm the only passenger with her. Now, all I can remember is people's mouths hanging open and in disbelief or shock or whatever, and myself crawling away trying to become a shadow because I was so embarrassed. And I'm sick now of the fact that I never challenged the statements, nor did anybody else that I ever remember. So that's my understanding of early childhood. And then Chad has a brief experience.
Yeah, really the only thing I can come up with and remember is, like I said earlier, my dad was a farmer, and we had a soybean field right outside our house at the time. And this was, again, in Arkansas. And my dad, I remember my dad, my uncle, and my grandfather talking to me about these 3 burnt circles out in the middle of the soybean field, right out alongside our house, between our house and our little shop, barn kind of thing. But that's as far as I remember, that's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah. I love the state of Arkansas, by the way. I did spend 5 years there in my Air Force career. So that was a beautiful state.
Oh, it is. It's a beautiful, especially like the Ozarks now. We were kind of down in the Delta between Little Rock and Memphis.
Right.
Mississippi kind of.
Lots of strange happenings going on in that part of the world.
Yeah. Oh, God, yes. God,
yeah, the caverns, and they just, some crazy things.
Yeah, they got some amazing crystal there, and one of the largest crystal fields in the world are there in Arkansas, and just energetically, the energy that comes through that stuff is amazing. So, how did you guys?
Wait, before that, Tom, I wanted to ask about Alta's mother.
Okay.
Did you feel that she was running away from something, and that's why she changed her name?
Absolutely. Absolutely. She was clearly running away. I thought it was as mundane most of my life of my understanding about her removing herself and myself from this world, because I'm mixed Indian, but could pass to be many different types of nationalities, I think, is really stretched. And yet my mom made sure that I had my regalia all my life. And she made sure that I understood that whatever abilities that I had that were extrasensory, our understanding was that this was inherited. And her truth told her that I inherited these abilities, these extrasensory abilities from, noted members of her tribe, if you will, the peoples that the matriarchal side of the family that happened to be the Nez Perce or the Nez Perce or, Washington State, Idaho, kind of the territories that you're in, Tom.
Yeah.
And so, lots of mystery. My first memory, because as I said to you, I don't have any early childhood memories, but my first memory that's extremely acute is I'm around 9 years old, as I said earlier, around 1966, 1967, and we were living at the time in Aurora, Colorado, because I have school records. So I've got some paperwork identifying some of this trail, but the first memory is I'm in a hospital, a military hospital that was across the street from where we lived, and I'm being tested in a lab setting with folks around me, adults that are wearing lab coats like doctors that are testing me for what they used to refer to as ESP. So, it's, when I try to explain to people, and even to myself, that's my first memory. It's not like I have time to work into it. All of a sudden, I exist. And and this is what I see going on around me. So just a real weird past.
Yeah. You know what I heard about supposedly why we don't remember, I don't know how true this is, but why our memories will begin at a certain age. And I heard that's because supposedly the soul is not fully integrated into the body. So maybe with you, that's what happened. I don't know.
Well, when she was explaining that, the thing that popped into my head is walk-in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Also could be.
Yeah. Are you familiar with what a walk-in is?
I am. Yes, I am. And, and again, open to all thoughts, open to all, concepts, open to all.
Right.
I certainly have had many years now, even though I admit I look and act much younger than my years, due to, I'm sure, never having children, just puppies and Chad. Ultimately, that's right.
Children
I've done
enough, right?
Absolutely. But I've done an just tremendous, and I continue to do a lot. I've become an amazing researcher, if you will, just trying to understand what the hay is happening to us.
Right. Okay, so how did you guys meet?
Chad's pointing at me again, so it's my lovely voice you get to hear. He's about to get in on this, I promise. It happened to be Valentine's Day, 1990, Little Rock, Arkansas. I'm 33 at the time, never married, no children, nor was I interested in either. Told that I'm an attractive female, so I know I've got enough confidence to realize that it had nothing to do with nothing physical, that this was all something that was driving me internally to, probably because I'm coming out of a world of just lots of mystery. It was, as I said, Valentine's Day. I'm in a real foul mood, which is unusual because I'm a pretty joyous being, or at least I like to pretend I am. This young man that I worked with, named David, was a young married guy with a baby, and he couldn't stand the idea that I didn't have a date for Valentine's. So he took it upon himself to try to arrange a blind date for me. Against my protest, he gets this guy on the phone. The conversation sounds polite enough, but the guy on the other end of the phone tells David he can't make the date. He wants to, but he can't make it because he's got to work that night. Well, now I'm in a really piss-poor mood because I'd already was in a foul mood, and now I can't even seem to get a blind date. Don't want one, but can't get one. So you can imagine, and I'm a girl.
Yeah.
Right. So ultimately, made a decision when I got off that job that night that I was not going to stay home alone. So what I described to you now, take note of, is being really out of character for my behavior. I love to party. I love to play. I'm very social, but I never went to someplace by myself and drank and drove. I don't like driving anyway, so I definitely never wanted to combine those. So really out of character, I decided that I was going to go out and have a drink that night by myself. I get home, change my clothes. Now I'm getting nervous because I knew that I'd made a decision that I was determined to follow through with, but I didn't have a clue where to go. I had been out of the state for many years. My mom lived in Little Rock. My mom was kind of a big fish in a little pond there. And she had, at this stage of her career, had become a premise inspector, an environmental codes inspector, a housing inspector. So, she was a misinspector and involved in the court system. So she was well known. She was also a highly respected native elder, in those terms as well. So she had a lot of respect. So I decided that I was going to go to some location close to her home because I looked just like her, so I figured that would protect me. I had no idea where to go. I ended up in this teeny tiny little place that was not far from my mom's home in an old residential neighborhood that I had never seen before, but I admit I didn't know this area that well. But it all seems out of character. What I'm describing to you now just seems to me almost like it's not real. But it certainly happened. But I'm telling you, I don't believe that what I'm explaining to you really was probably a real location. That takes a lot of courage to admit that I sound crazy. But I pull in this little parking lot, and it was only big enough for a car or two. When I say tiny, this place was like a Hobbit pub. You know, it was tiny, and it was old, like something that you'd see in Europe somewhere, tucked away out in the boonies of a village. So it looked friendly enough. There wasn't anybody in the parking lot. I go inside this place, and it's tiny. It's only big enough for a pool table. It's dingy. It wasn't dirty, but it was dingy, old-looking. Chad's saying, thank you, Chad. He does speak.
Huh.
He remarked dated. It looked dated. And he hasn't even seen it. So it's still daylight outside. I need a friendly face to make me feel comfortable that I've made this decision. Around the corner from the back of the bar comes this grandma-looking woman. Well, I think that's interesting. She's round and roly-poly with, you know, rosy cheeks, short, curly, gray, silver hair, and she's joyous looking. Well, that's just what the doctor ordered because I needed a mom figure. She asked me what I wanted to drink. I just asked for a draft. I remember her pouring the draft. I remember her kind of sliding it across the old bar at me, and then at that moment I remember the door opening up, the entrance door. Now, like out of a bad B movie, it seems like there was too much illumination around the two figures that came through the door, but who knows? Again, I'm in a dingy, dated environment, and anyhow, the door opens up in a bright, from sunshine outside, illuminates these two men that walk in. Now, these two guys look like something that just stepped out of a male model magazine. They were physically beautiful, both of them.
Are you there?
Hello?
Yeah. We're
okay,
listening.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Something was interrupting on the phone. Anyhow, they in the extreme, attractive. One blonde and one very dark hair. Both extremely well dressed, expensive casual clothes. The blonde had a expensive aviator leather jacket on, like a bomber jacket. And just coincidentally, because there are no coincidences, he informs me, we engage in conversation. I don't remember much about the conversation. I know I'm sober. I don't even remember taking a drink out of that beer if I even took a drink. And I didn't have any drugs. And nor do I have memory of them drugging me. So anyhow, you know, basically what I do really remember about this encounter is that Blondie tells me that he's the private pilot to the dark-haired dude's private plane. And I'm thinking, now that's interesting, because where the hell are you parking a plane in this neighborhood? This is bizarre. There are no airports, private or otherwise, anywhere in this neck of the woods. It's what's going on inside of me. I still remember it clearly. And yet, I can't call him a liar. It's like, oh, that's interesting. Well, the next thing I remember very clearly is they wanted to know if there was any place else in the city that was more interesting, that was happening, you know, more going on, whatever. And now this is where it gets even creepier for me. The fact is that I chose a location that I had never been to before. It happened to be in the city, in the middle of the city, in a city that was probably close to 500,000 people at that time, so it was no farm town. Had lots of clubs and restaurants and bars and so on and so forth. I happened to choose this location that was a huge sports bar, several miles away from where we were at, that I had never been to. But again, I knew it was in my mom's territory. It's the only thing that makes sense to me as far as her inspecting territory. So, again, the creepy part of this is that I have no memory at all. It's completely missing of getting from that location to the second location with these men. But then all of a sudden now I got memory, and the memory is I'm at this new location with these two, and I decide to call my girlfriend that's the same age as I am, never married, no kids, who happens to live just up the street from this sports bar. When I call her, she's there faster than we can hang up the phone when I tell her these are great, gorgeous-looking men and pilot and plane and what have you. She's single, and she shows up. Again, behavior on my part very strange. For whatever reason, I decide to leave her with these men on one side of this large sports bar and completely remove myself from them and go to the other side or further away from them. The whole point is I completely disengaged from all of them and had really nothing more to do with them. That's just nuts. That's nuts. As I repeat that to you, I feel crazy saying all of this. I'm sitting up at the bar by myself. I'm getting in a worse and worse mood as this place is packed full of lovers. It's Valentine's Day. It's the last thing I wanted to see. And, you know, my mood is just getting very sour, and all of a sudden this very polite, sweet-voiced man walks up to me. I know this is a boring story, but, you know, there's a method to my madness here. This guy walks up to me and asks me if I want to play pinball. Well, that's one of the activities among many that I hate. And I start to say something really ugly about that, but I see this little face, and he's friendly and he's cute, and, you know, something shifted in me. We go over, we begin to play pinball, and we discover that Chad and I were that blind date that didn't happen, that seemed to get arranged by the unseen hand anyway, because it's Chad who, you know, the guy earlier, David, had tried to set me up with. And if that's not bizarre, Chad had never been to this location before either.
And this is in a city of, 500,000.
Exactly. And then within 24 hours, just to top it off, I can say this much quicker for you, within 24 hours of Chad and I, in my knowing, were arranged, we discovered that Chad's grandfather, who was deceased at this time, but was alive a great deal of Chad's life and had a huge hand in Chad's childhood, you know, help raising him as a father figure in his life. This is his mother's father. Well, the world knew him as George, but come to find out, and it's engraved on his tombstone, his first name is Alta. Well, of course, that's my name. And then if that wasn't shocking enough to me, and let me tell you, it was shocking, because I've got all this mystery in my past anyway. We discovered his grandfather's last name is Duncan, and that happens to be my mom's name, her birth last name. So, you know, I'm essentially Alta Duncan, and that's nuts. Wow. Here I'm told I'm a mixed Indian from a reservation in Arizona with no Arkansans or Arkies in my life, if you will, blood-wise. And here Chad, who's got all of his family, we understand have no Indians in their family from Arizona. So to this day, we can't get an answer. We cannot find out what that mystery is about the name.
Wow.
The fact that his grandfather and I share the identical name.
Wow. So the name of this bar wasn't the Wine Cellar, was it?
I love that you looked that up. Now, that used to be an old haunt of mine, but no.
Okay.
And also,
no, I was in Arkansas for 5 years, there in Jacksonville, so I frequented several of the clubs downtown Little Rock.
We know each other. Oh, my God, Tom. I used to actually
Tom used to live in those places.
Oh, my goodness. I actually lived with the owner of the Wine Cellar.
Oh, really?
Early on in my life.
Yeah, well, this was early 80s. Yeah.
Right. This would have made it 78, 9 for me. So just before you.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. Small world.
Oh, boy. This is a memory. Yowza.
Seems like lifetimes ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, my life just flashed before my eyes.
Huh. Nice, nice. Okay, so you guys met and obviously hit it off, and I mean the synchronicity or quote unquote coincidences were strong enough to make you guys take note and go, "Wow, there's definitely something else going on here." At least I'm assuming you guys at that point there was definitely an awareness that there was things that were of high strangeness happening in the two of you coming together, correct?
Well, actually, she ran and hid from me for about 3 months.
That's right.
I couldn't find her.
Oh, he wasn't ever going to see me again.
I had to put the word out through the grapevine. The girl that she had introduced these two Romeos to, I knew her. She used to come into our bar where I worked. I worked at Oyster Bar there in Little Rock, the old original oyster bar there, right down from the Capitol. And she used to come in there, and she came in, and I'm like, "Where's Alta?" I'm like, "I can't find her. She just appeared." I tried calling, and so she finally had gotten back and talked to Alta and told her that I was looking for her. And
well, and let's just top it off again with another cherry. Chad's long distance at this time. He's left Little Rock. It's 3 months later. I'm getting word he's interested. Something switched in me again, like a switch off and on. I don't know if this is normal for other folks, but this is how it was happening for me. At this point now, when the switch is on, I have to find him. It's like, I don't know how to explain it other than it's a go charge. Got to find Chad. Well, I find Chad all right, and he's long distance now. He's left Little Rock. He's now at his father's home in Louisiana. Well, on top of it, he was in a horrible car accident horrible accident where he's been banged around in a convertible. They hit a tree, and, he's really been hurt, but not killed, if you will. So he's on his way back to Little Rock when we speak on the phone, and I tell him, I won't run this time, Chad, I swear. I'll be there when you get back. I promise. Now, I'm promising him with all the life I can muster. And I'll be damned if there's a lot to that story. I won't bore you all with it, but it's nuts. That very day when I hang up with Chad, I go bike riding, as in motorcycles, electric ponies, with a guy friend of mine. And before that adventure is over with, I go flying off that bike. And I got hurt so bad I have to go to the hospital. Now, this is at the same time Chad's driving back in for us to have our reunion. Well, I don't show up because I'm in the hospital getting stitched up. Yeah. Oh. So when we finally find each other again, we look like Frankenstein and her. And it's hysterical. And at that point, I finally said, well, that's enough of that. Apparently, somebody wants us together.
Yeah. I have an actual question about that night at the bar. Chad, did you get any feeling of the two guys she came with, or did you see them walk in, or you didn't even bother to notice them?
Yeah, I did. They were kind of the well-dressed, well-educated, professional type people. Me, I was blue jeans, tennis shoe wearing, guy that worked at the oyster bar. So I said, hey, I may have said hi to them. I did see them. I saw them with the other girl that Alta's friend. I knew her. So I do remember engaging, but not for very long.
Yeah. And what's interesting is we never talked about it again. Chad and I don't ever remember them being brought up with our friend or otherwise.
Right.
It was like it was a non-event.
Right.
I was going to say, did you get a feeling like they were friendly, douchey, or nothing at all?
No, I mean, just really neutral. I mean, they didn't, they weren't being uppity or anything that I can remember, but just very calm, cool. Yeah, it was very quick, because there was kind of...
We were on the other side of his location. We weren't around them. He only saw him, I think, when we were leaving. Right, Chad?
Yeah, maybe something like that. Just real quick.
What about your friend Alta? she ever, I mean, 'cause she was engaging with them. Did she get any feeding off them or hooked up with any of them or anything like that?
Was she?
No, that's what Alta was saying. We were talking about this.
Did you see her engaged with them?
Oh yeah, she was. They were all playing pool together, but we never talked about it afterwards.
Yeah, I kind of see, we see people like that come into our lives that end up taking us to a place that we have to be. So it's like they're almost like marks, or like you said, there's like a neutrality there. They're just performing a function in our lives, and once that's done, they're done. Who knows that they're really real in the first place?
It's interesting, we'll share with the two of you what we have never shared publicly, but are writing in the book that we're now in the process of trying to get published. This particular friend that we speak of, she was, her life was taken months after this whole event happened. She was killed. And there was tremendous mystery. Again, this is not anything we've ever been public about, but it has been important for Chad and I to have this written, of the fallout, the effect, and on so many levels, and the trauma.
Right.
And then you add this, the thought that a person could be killed on top of all of this. So we do not have her physically, I'm sorry to say, to communicate with about any of that.
And so, do you think the mysteries around her death might have something to do with you guys, or do you think that was completely something separate?
Well, I'm again really grateful to you both for questions. We're so grateful, and we're so comfortable that we would bring this topic up that we've never discussed publicly. What we can offer to you all that we know for fact is that it took 20 years of our lives, which is a small price to pay, to receive a miracle. And the miracle is that her murder was solved.
Okay.
Finally solved.
Wow.
But we were left for 20 years not knowing anything. And the trauma of that is mind-blowing.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
Well,
again, we're extremely grateful that we understand what miracles are. We are so sorry for her family, and we'll never be able to express that enough. But again, we do know that some human being, some human monster has been charged and convicted of this atrocity. But again, so many mysteries and tentacles involved in these experiences.
Sounds like it, definitely. Okay, so you guys are together and eventually get married, and I know we could probably dig into all sorts of strange little happenings along the way, but let's skip ahead a little bit. Let's bounce into your first encounter of the higher strangeness, shall we say?
Actually, Tom, should we leave that for the second hour, or
well, let's at least get the initial story out there, and then we'll dig into it, and we'll start the second hour off with digging into it.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so I'll begin it, and then Chad will conclude it. The intro of all of this. The intro is, we're now 1995, and Chad and I have moved to Louisiana. We chose to live outside of a community called Hammond, Louisiana, that happens to be a small university town. This particular evening, Chad asked if I wanted to go out and have dinner and drinks. That would have been probably about a 15-mile, 20-mile drive, Chad, somewhere in that nature, about a 20-mile drive. So it's still somewhat light out. The sun has not completely settled. Chad's driving, I'm passenger, and I'll have Chad pick it up from there.
Yeah, as we're coming into town, we go in, we kind of go into the bend in the road. And right at the bend of the road, there's this big group of trees. And then back behind the trees is the local Walmart shopping center. We get around this group of trees, and we look up in the sky, and there's this craft, and it's huge. I mean, it's bigger than the shopping center and the parking lot combined. It's black. It's pretty flat on the bottom. It's rectangle, and it's not as wide in the front as it is in the back. A little wider. It's below cloud level. It's not making any noise. There's maybe 2 or 3 lights in the front, 3 or 4 lights in the back. And I mean, it's moving so slow. I don't know. It is. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's moving, and it seems like it should just fall right out of the sky.
Wow.
We both look up at it. Alta kind of looks at me real quick.
Not kind of. She turned her head so fast I was whiplashed.
I looked down at her. We focused our attention back at the road, like as to say, without saying words, it was like saying, okay, if we don't see it, it won't know we're here. It won't see us. We went on to dinner that night. We never spoke about it. We didn't say, what the hell was that? We didn't say nothing. The next day, I think there was either a write-up or a radio or something like that. But I think we said, okay, we're not crazy. We weren't seeing things, but that was the end of it.
That meant others did witness what we were working very hard to disclaim had happened.
Yeah. And when we were driving, when we saw the craft, we didn't see, like people stopping the cars and looking up in the sky or pointing or anything like that. No disruption in traffic or anything like that.
That's interesting, and that's not surprising either, because we have this cognitive dissonance. Humanity has this cognitive dissonance that's anything outside of our norm tends to get completely overlooked at times. I mean, there's the stories of the when Cortez went into to South America, or was it Mexico? South America.
I keep hearing different versions of that story.
Yeah. Well, the story, one version of the story is that the Indians couldn't see the ships because they could not comprehend them or couldn't fathom a ship that size floating on the ocean. So, anyways, we do definitely have a kind of a disconnect for our perception. If it's not something that we are capable of comprehending or even imagining, then we can have the ability, I think, to completely block it out of our awareness. That's not surprising.
That's what I'm aiming for. I was totally aiming for that. Does not compute. My brain exploded. And when my brain exploded, when I was able to put it all back in there again, all scrambled up, I just said, no, that didn't happen. That was a non-event.
Wow, this is some interesting stuff, guys. And, we're at the top of the hour here, so we're going to take ourselves a little bit of a break. And Chad and Alta, have you guys got a website out there that you can share with our listeners?
Yeah, I'm kind of working on ours. We've got one that's kind of Alta's. It's www.readingswithalta.com. We also have a Facebook page. It's called Unique Rabbit Shawls and Gifts. It is spelled U-N-E-E-K Rabbit Shawls and Gifts.
And we use no critters in the making of our wearable art.
No animals are harmed for
our creation.
For our creation.
That's right.
Oh.
Yeah.
Good
And
stuff.
then Chad has Facebook also, Chad Dillard Facebook.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll make sure we got links to all those on the description of these shows out there. So also on the show page on our website also. So if you're out there listening on one of those other formats, the iTunes, the YouTubes, the Vimos, wherever this audio lands, and would like to hear the second hour, pop on over to the 100th Monkey Radio, where you will find hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of hours of material there. So looking forward to digging into this conversation more in the second hour. We will see you after this short break. Condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance.
The love you deny is the pain you carry.
Namaste, my friends.
Meditators, global thinking gladiators, glowing tubes that mesmerize, netting minds like butterflies, hapless lying in the night like moths misled into a light. Information overload, trust me, then what you're told. Tell me who you think I am. Give me meaning in a head. Just tell me the truth. If you haven't got a clue, then stop pretending that you do. Charismatic politicians, conspirators, and secret missions. Never let a question land that they can slink with sleight of hand. A pseudo-rational seduction, an over-budget stage production. Brain package and aim to bleeds, conveniently processed leads. Just tell me the truth. If you haven't got a clue, then stop pretending that you do.